Coming up on the Mobile Content Creators Show.
You know, I have to hire a camera crew, and the camera crew is X, Y, Z, €1,000. So we say, and we hope we get to this point where we can tell the federations, look, what do you have in your pocket? And he's going to say, oh yeah, well, whatever, my mobile phone and a few coins. Okay, so get your mobile phone out. And, you're at the games anyhow, interview the players after the games.
So on today's show, how do you use Snapchat, Facebook Live and all these other platforms to reach your audience? We'll speak to one sporting federation that's using a team of mobile journalists to do just that.
Welcome to the Mobile Content Creators Show. If you're a mobile journalist, marketer or creative who makes content on a mobile device or for mobile audiences, you're in the right place. Keeping you up to date with the fast-moving world of mobile, here's your host and mobile video specialist, Mark Egan.
Well, today I'm joined by Thomas Schoeneich from the European Handball Federation. So, we've been speaking to lots of people from the news world, but what about, sports federations? Can they use mobile, use it on social media? And the European Handball Federation has been doing some really interesting and innovative stuff. So, Thomas, thank you very much for joining me.
Oh, well, Mark, thanks for actually allowing me to speak here. Thank you.
Now, handball is quite big in certain countries. If somebody isn't familiar with handball, how would you sum it up? And what are the challenges that you face that maybe bigger sports like football don't face?
Well, it's how would I sum it up? First of all, brilliant game, exciting game. Like if you watch a game of handball, it doesn't stop. You have an average of 50, 60, 70 goals a game, so it's bam, 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 bam on both sides of the court. It's physical, but it's not, it's not brutal. So no one leaves the court with a bleeding nose. So it's the atmosphere usually is great because it's indoor, and if you've ever experienced any kind of sport in an indoor arena packed with 10, 12, 15,000 people, and when we're talking about our biggest events like even 20,000 people, it's just amazing. So really, I would obviously recommend for anyone who hasn't watched it, just go onto one of our channels, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, bit of advertising.
I see. As I said, I saw it at the 2012 Olympics, and I saw it with you in Poland, and it was fantastic. But do you think there are federations like yours? How different is it to create content for handball compared to something like football or soccer?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the reasons for this mobile journalism project is if you look at, I think it was the recent World Cup in Brazil, and Adidas had a social media team of 100 people or whatever there. That's obviously we can't do that. We don't have, these are sums that being talked about. That is not our game, so to say. So for us, using this mobile journalism as a way to create content, good content, because in the end, it's a cheap way of creating good content. If you know what I mean. I'm not talking about cheap content because obviously you want to, get the best picture out there, but it's a very, very good way for us to create content. This is probably one of the main advantages of going mobile for us.
Well, now we've crossed paths in the past at a few different sort of trainings and events and things. But one thing I'm really impressed with is that lots of sports federations, especially the big ones, it's all about control. It's all about, keeping the message really, really tight and everything. And some of the things that you've done have kind of been the opposite of that. Obviously, you're still, have control over a certain amount of it, but you've been giving mobile journalists the freedom to use things like Snapchat and various other platforms to tell the story of what's going on in handball. So before we get into the detail, why did you decide to go down the route of, mobile journalism?
Well, it started all in 2014 at the Men's European Championship back then, where we actually started getting mobile. Well, first of all, getting young journalists from universities and so on board, and trying to involve them in our work. Obviously, with the intention to kind of build up, future handball journalists. 1 year later, in December 2014, at the Women's Euro, we saw, okay, is our website as a platform for them just enough? Do we really just want them to, write a couple of stories, interview players afterwards? And we thought, no, that's not enough, and it's maybe a bit old-fashioned or however you want to call it. So in December 2014, we actually jumped onto this mobile journalism train for the first time. Now we're looking at producing content, specifically dedicated content for our social media platforms, because obviously we had these platforms before, but we hadn't really gone into the approach of like specifically creating content for these platforms, because we saw obviously that's where a lot of our fans are. We saw our figures on Facebook going up like this, figures on Instagram going up like this, and that's how it started, and it has been really successful. We now have at major events, and I'm just coming back from the Women's Champions League final weekend, where we had 3 mobile reporters producing content for Snapchat, Facebook, and Instagram, and it's really gone up ever since.
One of the big sort of test cases that you had was with the Euros in Poland recently. So the European Championships, a big event, various countries taking part. Now, as I recall, you took a few kind of dormant accounts and some of the ones that maybe didn't have that many followers on different platforms, and you used it as an opportunity to find out what worked and what didn't. So what are the kind of things you did, and what was working for you?
Obviously, we have TV coverage. There's EHFTV.com as our main online TV platform where all the matches were broadcast live. Obviously, given the respective geo restrictions and so on. Obviously, the event was broadcast on television in 180 countries roughly, and so on and so on. So our approach was really, and that was work, what not duplicating or replicating anything that was shown in TV, given the fact that obviously would eventually lead to questions from rights holders. Well, we're showing it, you've sold us the rights, and just duplicating what's on TV anyhow.
Which is fair enough if they paid for it. They don't want you there with your little phone just showing it live, did they?
So the approach has really been like going behind the scenes, because there is a lot of stuff that is going on behind the scenes in the tribunes. Obviously, as the federation, we do have a certain amount of access to the players, to the teams, and this is what fans eventually cannot see on TV. So when I look at some of the pictures that have appeared on Instagram from the Champions League final weekend that we've just been, this behind the scenes. This is like the celebration afterwards, where they all go crazy. And obviously, where mobile phones is a huge advantage, because it just keeps you mobile as well. It's not only a mobile phone, but it keeps you mobile in that arena, and you get these scenes that probably would be hard to get to if you had like a big camera on your shoulder. One of the most successful posts on Instagram was a Croatian player, I think, after the bronze medal match, and he actually, he had his child, and I mean, it was very, very cute, because it was like 3-4-year-old child, had like massive headphones on his, and he was just carrying it, waiting to get back to the arena for the medal ceremony. Or you're close to the bench, and you actually see these like raw emotions when I think it was Germany in the semi-final, and they just scored with 1, 2, 3 seconds to the end. They scored the winning goal. And we have these emotions, with the entire bench jumping up, running onto the court, and all these kind of things. So it's this behind the scenes approach that has worked.
Because you would think, and this is one of the complaints you do have for people who cover sport, is that if they don't have the rights, then what are we supposed to do? Actually, sometimes showing the reaction to the goal and the celebrations was getting you more views and shares than the actual goal itself.
Then the actual goal, because the actual goal is shown from 25 angles on TV, and slow-mo, super slow-mo, super slow-mo, forwards, backwards, upside down. So that's, again, I think it's not about duplicating what's on TV. And if you're talking about sports events, non-rights holder access, there's so many fans, and what also worked well for us, and I think we've even stepped up our game in that respect, coming from the Euro in Poland in January now to the Final Four weekends in the men's and women's Champions League. Is involving fans. When we're talking about Snapchat, really being in the crowd there, little prediction games. At these games, you see, loads of players, other players are watching it from different clubs, from different nations, big names, getting them involved. And it's all this stuff that has been proven really successful.
Because I remember I was traveling, taking 2 or 3 different flights one day during the Euros, and was following your social media feeds. And I did really feel that I got both what was happening in the game, but a real sense of the atmosphere, how the mood was changing in the arena. And a lot of that was coming from Snapchat. Now tell us a little bit about how the Snapchat works, how your approach to it. And what do you think works? What lessons could people learn from what you've been doing?
I think Snapchat is all about personality, and the success to it is having a person that really grasps what Snapchat is about. Like when we started this channel about at the beginning of the season, actually, because one of the things, coming back to your first question, one of these things for this mobile journalism project is obviously, we can try new things, we can get into new channels, trying to keep up with what's out there. And when the decision was made, okay, we launch Snapchat as a new addition to our existing channels, we said, I looked at stuff that people have tried in the past, and so there's one guy in New York, Casey Neistat, I think is his name, and there's an article about him in the New York Times, and so there's one line. This is like, consider Snapchat as your own personal TV show, and I think that what describes it best. You have to be present on Snapchat again. If you're just like snapping, and no one sees you, no one hears you, it doesn't work. We then saw what DR Sporten, Danish sports radio, did at the Women's World Championship in Handball in December in Denmark, and they actually hired specifically one guy who did it for them, and he went out there going crazy, going high fives with the fans, hugging fans, playing like crazy games with them. I have 2 brothers and 1 sister, and they are 17, 16, and 15. This is the kind of medium, and Snapchat has the functionality to kind of attract this kind of audience. Little colors, and you put text across, and you play with the filters. You do a face swap, and if you feel like you become a king, and there's like the dollars raining around you. I think that's that works. You have to have the personality that feels comfortable using these kind of filters and these kind of features.
But then the one thing I find it really interesting is, like you say, the personality, and that really does come across in some of the stuff I've seen. But traditionally, if you're a sports federation or even a news organization or a NGO, the idea of just giving somebody a phone and saying there's nobody's kind of checking on this before you publish it, and you have free reign to do, show your personality. And you had people who were sometimes from a particular country and not hiding that when they were covering that country playing a match. How did you feel when you first started doing this, about giving people that amount of freedom to say, there's your phone, there's a platform? How much control did you have, and how much control do you think you need?
I think, we obviously want to control the message we send out there, and but if you do that too excessive, what do you allow? We have to trust these. Like, if we want to, walk on new ways, we have to trust the people. And I think the way we do it is, obviously we train them. I wouldn't give someone a phone and say, yeah, you just do it. So I think when it comes to that from a federation's point of view, the training is vital. So you give them a feel for your organization, the feel for the message you would like to convey. And what we've started now is, because we obviously then see, for example, you talked about Poland. In Poland, we got 8 people in, and we are now recruiting from this pool. So the one big goal for the future is to kind of, build up this team so that, you have a dedicated mobile journalist team that you can rely on, that know what you're after, and you recruit from this pool of mobile journalists.
So you've effectively trained up and built up a network of mobile journalists. So when there's an event on, you can call people in, and you know that you will get a certain standard, and people kind of get what you're doing. And Snapchat is one platform. When it comes to things like Twitter and Instagram, how do you approach those? What kind of stuff is your audience really engaging with?
Apart from the behind the scenes stuff, what I mentioned earlier, for me, it's eventually about defining processes of how that can work, so that you have like a pattern or so that you can follow. So what we did, for example, just as a hands-on kind of thing, just now in Budapest at the women's EHF Final Four, so the final weekend of the Women's Champions League. For Instagram, we said, okay, we use maybe that's advertising for these apps as well. So you use either your normal camera on your phone or an app like Camera Plus or whatever to take the photo. You then play with it on Snapchat. You can apply a filter, or you can obviously fine tune the image. You then use an app like Over, or any kind of app that allows you to add a watermark. And to every picture that we actually put on Instagram, we added the Women's EHF Final Four logo, so that immediately when you went to the channel, you then had an idea. Okay, this picture is obviously now taken in Budapest from the Women's EHF Final Four, and then we uploaded it straight to Instagram. So we basically went around the arc, take it in Instagram, apply the filter, but we kind of to optimize the image in a way that suited our needs best, and then published it on Instagram as like the main photo channel, so to say, if you say so. Twitter is the I always call it like the most live channel. Like we did create a special mobile reporting Twitter channel, which we called EHF Live, which then I just mentioned that here because you asked about it earlier. Also, because it was important for us to give them a platform on which they can publish. And at the same time, on the official EHF Champions League channel or on the official EHF Euro channel, we still kept this like full amount or full level of editorial control. And on EHF Live, obviously, with the way, the trust we had developed and so on, we gave that to them. And that was the mobile reporting platform. So in terms of how we approach things on EHF Live, it is the most live the Twitter channel. So, you have basically follows a game as it processes with, bit of warm up, a vine from how you get into the arena, or a little vine from, when the players run onto the court, just for the team presentation at the very beginning. We also introduced, for example, now in Budapest, certain elements of live coverage. I was
going to ask you about that, because I was struck watching, it popped up on Facebook that you guys were live. So I switched on, and actually what it was is a game had just finished, and you were rolling in the kind of, the mix zone where people come out to be interviewed. And it was just live, as in, nabbing people and interviewing them there. What was your thinking behind doing that live, which traditionally, you've gone and you recorded it, you uploaded your clips. What was your thinking, and how's it been working?
So we tried two things. So we tried live coverage on Twitter and live coverage on Facebook, obviously with Facebook Live now being available for everyone, and Periscope on Twitter. And with Facebook, the figures have been really, really good. It's like really, the Facebook page has just under 250,000 followers, the EHF Champions League. And the reach of the best live videos is above 100,000. So this has really been successful for us. I think it's, again, it's this kind of behind the scenes kind of flair that you offer. And then, the game's over. Immediately you offer statements from players after the game, like straight away. And I've been asking myself, and I don't have the exact answer to that. Where do we use Periscope? Where do we use Facebook Live? So obviously offer to, with like varying little differences. Obviously, the same kind of service. What we did was like halftime analysis. Like, you know that from football, or you know that from other sports. Straight after the halftime whistle or just before the second half started, you get the coach or the assistant coach or the goalkeeper coach or whatever, just for a quick comment. From any kind of team, and also what we tried, we played a bit with the expectation, anticipation of fans. So we announced it before that we would do it, and just created a graphic and put it at the top of the Twitter channel, and obviously coming up with like an approximate time. That's a bit, it's not ideal, I have to say, but saying, okay, roughly around whatever 4 o'clock or so, that would be the analysis of the halftime of that game on Facebook, but on Twitter, and it's.
And are you imagining the whole second screen idea, that people are sitting there, maybe watching the actual match on TV, or you can obviously stream it in certain countries, and they've also got their phone, their tablet or whatever, and they're interacting with that whilst watching at the same time? Is that how you imagine lots of people are doing this? Or?
I hope so. It's actually a term that, because I knew that you were calling me today. It's actually a term that came to my mind while thinking about this. It's like a second screen kind of app, and you say, okay, I've been watching it, and David Davis, he's the Vardar coach, one of the 4 teams that participated in Budapest last weekend, and I could just hear what he thought about the game.
Because it sounds like the common themes are personality in the people actually running the channels, whether it's Snapchat, Twitter, whatever, but also showing personality in the actual sport, whether it's the fans or the kind of more unguarded moments of the players, and that's where you're giving added value, not trying to compete with the traditional way of covering the sport, right?
Yeah, exactly. We talked a lot about the personality of the presenter, or the people that is actually the person that is actually responsible for the channel. We've got a social media editor here, and what he has done perfectly, he has developed this like social media voice, so to say. It's like, I think we speak differently on our social media channels than we do like in our like more official communication on the.
And what would be your, do you have a kind of a term or a phrase that somebody comes, let's say I was joining you, I was going to cover the next game, which would be terrible because I don't know the rules, but if I did, and they say, right, you need to understand our voice. In summing up, how would you sum that up?
Younger, fresher, more dynamic. That's me done then, isn't it?
And humor as well. Yeah, it seems to be quite a lot of humor.
Humor as well, absolutely. You have to have it, humor. Obviously, we experience that when we feature the players that are active on social media as well, that obviously gets us higher engagement rates, because you get the retweets, you get the reposts, etc., etc., etc. That's another key to success.
And just one little geeky question. When you're doing your things like your Facebook Lives, what kit are you using? What devices? What microphones? How much kit are you bringing?
It's very basic, I have to say, and it's only been recently that we've actually started doing this, like buying Mojo kits. It's a monopod, €20 or so from Amazon. I think it's in the Amazon Basics. It's an iRig microphone, and that's obviously a little mount that you put on the monopod to do it, and that's our next way of kind of ensuring that we get like the same amount of coverage no matter where we are. So this is like buying these kits, having like 4, 5, 6 accessories, and every mobile reporter, no matter what game we send him to, gets this kit. And at the same time, if I can just go into that direction, is this is also one of the other reasons why we're doing this, because we're the European Handball Federation, so we have 50-member federation, and there are the likes of France, Denmark, Germany, obviously really big. And then there are the likes of clubs like Kiel, Barcelona, Paris, or Gür, when we're talking about women's Champions League. But there are a lot of smaller clubs, a lot of smaller federations, like literally talking about, 3, 4, 5 people shows, so to say. And then, the guy who's doing, who's responsible for the website, for the social media channels, if they have some, is also doing the marketing, they sells tickets and sells the sausages during the games as well, or the coffee or whatever. And they say, well, look, how can I actually promote the sport if I'm in that kind of situation? And, I have to hire a camera crew, and the camera crew is X, Y, Z, 1,000 euros or so. But we say, and we hope we get to this point where we can tell the federations, look, what do you have in your pocket? And he's going to say, oh yeah, well, whatever, my mobile phone and a few coins. Okay, so get your mobile phone out, and you're at the games anyhow. Interview the players after the games. If he's the respective club manager, I mean, he can even go to the dressing room, and it's brilliant content there. They've just won the most important game in the season, and there's champagne bottles being opened, a couple of beers being drunk, people hugging each other, jumping around the floor, singing "Wow, wow, 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 we're the champions." And you put this on your Facebook channel, and you put this on your Twitter channel, and your fans will say, hey, it's cool guys, really, nice watching them. And all he did was, maybe he recorded it like that at the very beginning, and then in the next step, he, actually maybe gets the monopod and records it even more professionally. And it's, again, it's not about producing cheap content. It's producing about good content, valuable content, without having to spend too much money.
And the one other memory I have of you mentioning the monopod there is when we did some training just before the Euros, and we had some monopods during one of the games. This was before in Płock, or Plock as it says it's written in Poland, and the ball went under the advertising hoardings. And one of the poor mobile journalists had their monopod ripped off them by one of the officials, who went underneath and managed to get the ball out. So it's a multi-purpose device. But we
help in any kind of possible way we can help, obviously,
yeah, that's all the can-do attitude of mobile journalism. So just to sum up now, so now I'm thinking, if somebody is listening to this and maybe they're in a smaller sports federation, maybe they're at in a charity or just an organization that doesn't have the big firepower to have big camera crews and everything. How would you sum up the lessons you've learned as far as using mobile for social media, and how you've built that community? Because from what you're talking about here, it seems that you've actually got a really nice level of engagement with the fans in a way that maybe lots of sports federations don't have. So what would be your advice to somebody following in your path?
The first step is go and try it. It's just like really don't be afraid, because it's part of our future. It's definitely, this way of producing content is part of our future. So if you want to stay up to date, so you have to make the risk or take the risk of trying it. Once you've tried it, because it's so young, it's like keep on trying it, getting better, improving it, investing a few resources in it, whether that's like training, whether that's professional, investing into professional kit. See what works for you. See what works, what doesn't work. And every sport is different. Every environment is different. Every sports federation will know best where their fans are, what kind of age group their fans are, etc., etc. And then once you've analyzed all this for you, and the key is it's constantly producing. It's constantly producing content. That is the only way how you eventually build a community. If you do it once a year and then you start again in 2017, it doesn't work. Get into it, test, try, improve, professionalize, and stick to it.
And I see that you also do things like Google Hangouts. So the idea that even when there's no sport happening, that doesn't mean that no content is happening as well, sort of building that relationship. And if I were to turn up and I say, right, I'm going to cover one of your games for you, which apps would I need to have on my phone?
I actually sent our mobile reporters an app list just for the Women's EHF Final Four, and let me just try whether I remember what I actually wrote. So obviously the main channels are Twitter, Instagram, and Snapchat, and Facebook for live coverage. I talked about how we try to streamline the production process, so to say, on Instagram, and we did that with and I know there's always this discussion about Android and iOS apps, so I'm just like sticking to the iOS apps here. We talked about like your regular camera app, or there's Camera Plus, I think that's then Snapseed as an app that kind of makes you work with images. Over as the possibility to add like a watermark, or in our case a logo to the photo. Obviously then apps that interact quite nicely with like the main apps like Twitter. So for Twitter obviously we had Vine, so to say, and Periscope. Then there's a 360-degree image app called Boobly, which is just very nice when you are in a full arena, and you provide fans with like a 360-degree image of that full arena. Obviously, when you want to do better filming, Filmic Pro or so is the way to go.
But the point seems to be that as long as you can manipulate your photographs, maybe play with a bit of video, but lots of it is about getting it up quickly, kind of not too sort of heavily produced. It's about being current live.
Exactly. We're not talking about like producing 2.5 minute packages or whatever for our content. Like for us, like mobile journalism is really producing mobile content for mobile audiences, like that can be consumed on a mobile phone. And just to add to the app question, in the end, then you work with like apps like maybe Magisto or Replay that kind of allow you to summarize the day, so to say, in a very quick way. Basically, putting in all the content that you produced over the day or the match and summarize it nicely.
Okay, and of course, all those apps are changing very, very quickly, including some of the ones you talked about. Sort of lots of updates.
Oh yeah, Oh, sorry, it's quick now, isn't it? It's not Replay.
It is, yeah. But I thought I won't pull you up on that. But, you've done so well. And where can people go to see some of this content?
Okay, also let's say the name dropping advertising time. That's great. Our Facebook page is obviously facebook.com/ehf.champions.league. The EHFCL Twitter channels are at EHFCL. The live channel for everywhere where we do mobile reporting is at EHF_live. Instagram is at EHFCL. Snapchat we're also just EHF_live, and then replace anything EHFCL by EHF Euro, and you can follow our EHF Euro coverage as well. Did I forget anything? No, but EHF Live and EHFCL and EHF Euro across the main social media platforms. That's where you can find us. Great.
Well, hopefully we can get you a few more handball fans, because like I say, I can vouch for it. It's a great sport, but sometimes when we look at broadcasters or traditional news organizations, they come with lots of baggage, whereas you've come at this with a very fresh approach, and just like you say, just trying, here's what works, here's what doesn't, these are the kind of platforms we're going for. So it's a great example. So best of luck with it, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mike. Thank you. Looking forward to hopefully seeing you soon again somewhere. Thank you.
If you like this podcast, don't forget to subscribe. And we'd love it if you would leave a review on iTunes or Stitcher. To get in touch with Mark, go to www.purplebridgemedia.com or tweet him at Mark Egan Video.